General Dayan described the Suez Canal as the best anti-tank ditch in the world. He calculated it would take 24 hours to bridge it and cut through the sandbanks the Israelis had built all along the canal, up to 60 feet high in places. Ample time, he thought, for the forts along the Bar-Lev line to be supported by the Armour Reserve, waiting further back in Sinai. The 600 men manning the Bar-Lev forts had grown complacent too. Egyptian exercises had been a regular event for months, and even fresh construction work was thought to be an attempt to stave off boredom. But like the exercises, it was just one part of the meticulous planning that would make the canal crossing an epic military achievement. In October, the Bar-Lev forts were manned by reservists of the Jerusalem Brigade, doing their annual military service. They found out what the construction work was for at 2 p.m. on the 6th. Tank ramps now overlooked their positions. The tanks joined 1,000 other guns, pouring tons of high explosive onto the Bar-Lev line, while an airstrike hit Israeli positions deep in Sinai. It was the start of a technically brilliant operation that would restore Arab military credibility. The Egyptians were so proud of it that months later their Third Army reenacted the whole exercise for the cameras. Hundreds of machines wreathed the West Bank and the canal in smoke. Screened from Israeli eyes, 8,000 Egyptian infantry began crossing the canal in rubber dinghies at midpoints between the forts. In 1971, the Israelis had tested a method of pouring oil onto the canal from an underground system and turning it into a wall of flame. The Egyptians took no chances. The night before, frogmen had blocked pipes leading down to the canal. Once the first wave had scaled the bank and established a foothold, tank hunting units moved inland to await the first Israeli armour, equipped with RPG-7 anti-tank weapons, and the latest Soviet anti-tank missile, the Saga. Unfolded from a suitcase, it could be set up in minutes. Its wire guidance system and 3,000-yard range demanded courage and skill from the operators. Each had fired 100 rockets during training. It wrought havoc among the Israeli tanks. One unit alone claimed 8 tanks in the first 10 minutes. With the tank defense now in place and heavier equipment arriving, the second phase of the operation could begin. Designated teams began clearing the Israeli defenses, where the Jerusalem Brigade, after the initial shock, were now fighting back. Further south on the Bitter Lakes, an amphibious operation was underway. Tanks and troop carriers of the Third Army poured more men into the Sinai. In imitation of Israeli tactics, heli-borne troops had been dropped behind the lines. The 130th Marine Brigade had orders to join them in the desert. It was the only failure of the whole operation. The Israelis shot down 14 loaded helicopters, and the survivors achieved little. The Egyptian generals had estimated they would lose 10,000 men in crossing the canal alone. In fact, the barrage kept most Israelis in their bunkers,